Don't be rushing the table.
Hi, this is the Wasatch Taxpayers Association candidate debate. We're going to open it up to the audience for questions. Who would like to go first? Jerry? Speak up, Jerry.
I have several questions, but I'll try to make one. I've been thinking mine's on zoning, and I know a lot about what Ron thinks about zoning because he talked about it at the planning commission meeting several months ago. I don't know if I completely agree with him, but I think I'm more inclined to be at his end of it than I am when it's overdone.
What's your question?
My question is, we have a school that's being contemplated right now, and it has to be in a zone, I would think, but I'm not sure what city it's in or what county it's in, because it's not in either one. I think it's in the county, but is it in the county or is it in the city? Which one is it in?
So, okay, let's bring this back here. So, we're talking about the high school Northfields property, I'm assuming, okay?
I know what we're saying too, but which one is it?
In the county.
It's in the
That
county.
area has been requested for annexation. It's been put on hold, I think unanimously so far because of that and other issues. The bypass road and everything else goes through there, but it is in the county. The problem for us as a city and to some degree the county, it has to do with state legislature, but the schools can do just about whatever they want. They don't have to adhere to a
So
zone.
does the city have to put it in this, who's it going?
They can build it where they want.
But see, this is not going to impact one or the other. Who decides who it's going to be?
City or county?
Yes.
They're going to need sewer and water. They can't have a high school out there on a
It's the county
septic
right now,
system.
correct?
It's out in the
It's in
But
county.
the county will have to take responsibility for it.
No.
Well, unless we agree to annex it. We don't have to annex it. We had this issue with the Daniel School. They went and got a bond, and the school was bid and everything, and let's go ask Heber if we can run the sewer into it. And I had some angst about that. We should have been asked ahead. We don't necessarily have to annex them, but they can build where they want. They don't have to follow zoning. That's a state legislative decision.
Yeah.
Anybody okay. Sorry. Anybody else want to discuss that?
The school is a sovereign entity in the state of Utah.
Right.
So they can put a well in their own water treatment plant, and they can put a big sewer treatment plant in if they want. The only reason they're asking to be in Heber City is so they don't have to do that. I think if the school district, if we decide that that's a good place for the school and we vote for a bond, then as a city we're going to say, well, what would we rather have? A big septic system for 2,000 kids, or should we put it into our sewer system? That's going to be a kind of an engineering question, or at least a question of what's reasonable.
So the school district does not have to provide their own, if they're going to independently do that, they don't have to provide their other services then. Somebody's got to provide them.
They can
Right.
provide them too.
Okay,
That happens.
next. I'm sorry,
Schools do
we're
that.
going to move on. Next question. Go ahead.
My name is Sandy. When we were off camera, Mike and Ron were talking about the Eastern Bypass and Perry feeding onto Old Mill Road. Will you be expecting, let's say, in your general knowledge, will you be expecting the same kind of traffic that is going right now up Coyote down Valley Hills? Or will you be expecting more? Because when Sorensen gets in, all of that's going to all feed together. So
I will expect the same amount of traffic when that's built. That's there now. There's a certain amount of traffic. Any traffic engineer will calculate it and say it's coming from the east down Center Street and it turns on Mill Road and heads up down Valley Hills Boulevard where I live and goes out Coyote.
And as of 30 days ago, we had 900 cars in a 24-hour cycle. So why would we have more than those cars? Because it's the same people trying to get from Highway 40 to their homes on that east side.
Adding section C does not increase the traffic. They're going from east to north towards Salt Lake or whatever, or they're going down center to Provo and they're not gonna use any of it.
And they're not going down 500 north.
No, nobody will
No.
go down 500.
If you bring it to 550, they'll go down 500.
But it's not.
It's backtracking now.
Where else are they gonna go? Up through Valley Hills and out Coyote?
Through the
They do.
cemetery.
Yes.
And a lot of
They
people
go
already
right,
do.
right up Mill Road.
Okay, with that, somebody mentioned a stop sign on Old Mill,
Mill and Center.
a Mill and Center, sorry. That is something that is dealt with by the city council, correct? That is a decision that's done with the city council and
That would be a
the
city council decision.
city engineer,
Our
right?
engineer is looking at it. We've had 2 meetings where it's been discussed so
Okay.
far. There's some other, in the last meeting, our city engineer proposed some intermediary things first.
Okay,
Putting stop signs or whatever before a light, there's steps to go. But the Eastern Bypass, again, the objective is to get it all out on the Highway 40, not out through Coyote or
Right.
anything else. But it's
So-
got to be finished all the way for that.
so with that in mind, each one of you is gonna want to be very good at communication within the city staff, correct? What is your plans on that? That's what I would like to know. How are you going to communicate with city staff that you want this done because you know that your neighborhood wants the stop sign or whatever's best for it? How will you,
But one of the concerns I have as a city councilman is we have a bit of a NIMBY effect.
okay?
We're a certain neighborhood and they may be more articulate than another one. But if you put a stop sign to benefit the people coming down Mill Road, you just stop people, and our city engineer brought that out. You put a stop sign on Center Street, you've got people trying to go up and down Center Street. So he's looking at traffic studies to justify which traffic to do what. But the minute you do one, you affect the other.
Right.
But isn't
Okay.
the role of city council to represent the community? I mean,
Well,
Perry
yes,
said,
but we represent all of the community, not
Yeah.
just Valley Hills, not
Right.
just, how about the northwest part or
Right. I
southwest
agree with
part
Ron.
of the city?
We
But
listen to the
Not just,
community.
Right.
not just the noisy part. Our
Right.
job is to listen to all of the city.
Well, the other issue there is, yes, it's a real problem on Mill Road and Center Street on certain times of the day. If you take a look at how much traffic is coming down, up and down Center Street, I think it's a much busier road than Mill Road. So if you put a four-way stop there, you're stopping the much busier road for the benefit of fewer people except for an hour or so, 2 hours a day, 180 days out of the year, which is less than half the year. So that's a hard,
but isn't it the role of city council to make sure our community is safe? And I don't care if it's 1 hour or 15 minutes. If you're creating a situation where you have traffic and you're creating an accident or potential for an accident, and you have the opportunity to pay a couple $100s to put a stop sign in, isn't that our job to make sure that we are moving traffic through our city safely?
You're missing the point. The stop sign will stop Center Street those other hours. And apparently you must use Mill Road. You're advocating a part of the city. We have to
I
represent
don't
all
want
of
to
the
see the
city.
accident.
Hey,
I
we
don't want
should
to see
debate
the
that in a future
council.
city
Let me-
council.
Well, this is.
Let me respond to that from my ex-law enforcement career. Stop signs don't really regulate traffic when it's that problem. The only real solve to that problem is a red light. And I find it kind of interesting that Mill Road, you hear a lot of people complaining about the red, that up there right now, but yet I do know that the city council on the agenda has a red light scheduled for 1200 South, and right there by the library and the senior citizens, there's going to be a red light put in there. And the problem there right now is very, very minimal compared to what we have on Mill Road. So what I'd be saying is, where do we get the money to put a red light on, and nobody wants it. I remember when this used to be a one-cow town. Park City Police used to say, let's go over to the one-cow town. I said, why? Pat Prowley and the chiefs over there said, I said, why do you call it a one-cow town? Because you have one red light. And now, we're gonna getting that big where them red lights got to start expanding to control all the traffic. And that's a spot right there that I think should be number one. And that's something that I would propose, instead of a four-way stop sign, let's go with the red light. They're expensive, about $1 million.
So I'd like to jump in. I understand space is a constraint in a lot of places around town, but as we continue to grow, I'd like to see more of an emphasis placed on looking at roundabouts. It's a way to manage traffic, to keep traffic moving, and at the same time prevent those accidents. I think Mill and Center would have been a great place for one, but obviously the current design of the intersection just wouldn't allow it. But there are other places coming online that would be good candidates for roundabouts, and I think we should be proactively considering those. But Sandy, to your point, I think your question was, how do we plan to communicate with staff? I think the answer is actually simple. It's we need people who are willing to communicate with staff, and who are willing to sit down and have those conversations. I sat down with the city engineer a couple of weeks ago, and I just said, hey, would a roundabout even work conceptually? And he mapped it out for me, and he showed me why it wouldn't at that intersection of Center and Mill. And it's as easy as that. It's saying, hey, can we talk about this and put it on a future agenda? Can we have these conversations? And it's keeping an open dialogue so we can go to staff, but so they know that we're approachable too, and they can bring ideas to us.
I appreciate you guys.
I don't think it's been a big issue with staff. I talked to Bart about the problem that's developing on 6th South and 3rd. They like roundabouts. I've used them for 40 years in other countries. And he didn't know if they'd fit. And when he got his little protractor out, they will fit. And he's looking at a roundabout on 6th and 3rd. It'll work.
Okay. Another question? Go ahead.
This is an add-on. Sorry, this is an add-on to the question. When you said how we're going to communicate with staff, I believe, in my experience, and I've been to many meetings, and when I can't come, I have listened to them in the past. Historically, it's been my feeling that council members have been condescending to staff. And I think Heber City has an opportunity to move forward in a much more positive way, because they work really hard for you and for us. And I think that the council can do a better job with that. My second question is this, my name's Sheila, is Ron brought it up earlier, and it's been an issue that's been an issue for me for many, many years. And that is this idea of abstaining. So here's my take at it. On Capitol Hill, I've been to many, many sessions on Capitol Hill. When a lawmaker is to vote, and they call the vote, there is no abstaining allowed. You get to vote yes, you get to vote no. So why I'm passionate about this is because there are 5 people who represent the entire city. Only 5. And when you abstain, and certain council members have abstained more than others, I have followed the records in years past, it's been a dozen. So that to me is a cop-out, because Perry mentioned the documents. It's your job to read those documents. It's your job to be prepared. I'm a school teacher. I have many legal documents. Government requires me to be abreast on that involve a child. I don't believe it's any different for the city. So if you haven't made a decision, that is your fault.
So is there a question?
The question is, why? How do we feel about abstaining? Because it feels like it's been happening more than it should be.
Okay. Who wants to start?
I think it's pretty easy. Abstaining on a vote, in my opinion, comes down when you have a conflict of interest. And in my opinion, the only time I would not vote would be when I have a conflict of interest. It's going to pad my pocket or there's a reason there that I shouldn't be voting on that, and I would make that very well known right up front. Any other reason? Just because I haven't studied it and I'm not ready for that night, I'm gonna have to go up what I have. And the bad thing about that is, you do that too many times, you won't get reelected. You don't, that's what the people put you in there for.
So if you had a conflict of interest, the question. No, that, did you make?
Okay, who else would like to?
Well, I think Perry's right. You need to state your conflict of interest before you even start the discussion. So I agree. I think you should make a decision, yes or no. The only reason why you should use the abstain is because there's a conflict of interest.
Anybody else?
I'd like
Brian?
to jump in on that. Right, if you have a conflict, you should get up and leave the room. You shouldn't even be sitting there to hear or participate in the discussion. The city council already has a conflict disclosure that begins each one of their meetings. You disclose your conflicts for the agenda, and when that agenda item comes up, you excuse yourself. You don't even participate. You're not abstaining. You're not present. You don't participate in the discussion, because if you have a conflict, you shouldn't be able to sway the conversation or let your presence sway the conversation. I also think it's important to dig in, get comfortable with what's on the agenda, even if some of those agenda items have 20-page staff reports that read like stereo instructions. But at the same time, that's what the council's elected to do, is to comb through those documents. I'm a practicing attorney. I'm comfortable going through those documents, and I like to be able to put the skill set to work for the people of Heber. I think it's important to vote yes or to vote no. I can count on probably one hand the amount of times I've abstained in the context of a planning commission meeting, and it's when it was time to approve minutes that I wasn't present for the meeting that those minutes represented.
You can also continue it till the next meeting, unless there's some deadline that, a developer or whatever. So that, there's that other option to say, let's continue this.
And that's the appropriate option if you don't have enough information to make an informed decision. You don't abstain, you ask to continue it so that way more research can be done. I also think it's appropriate to abstain to throw the vote one way or the other.
Okay.
One other comment, if someone abstains from voting, it's the same as a no vote. Basically, even though they say they're abstaining, they're really voting no.
Okay. How much time do we have? Let's stop there and we'll restart in a minute, okay?